Oh, Ruby, you're such a good sport right now.
Welcome to Ruby Reviews Books. Reviews from a cat who cannot read. From a cat who cannot read. Ruby Reviews Books, where Ruby, a cat who cannot read,
Welcome to Ruby Reviews Books. Reviews from a cat who cannot read. She may not understand the words, but she sure likes books. Today's book is Count Magnus and Other Ghost Stories by M.R. James. Regarded by Lovecraft as one of the few creative voices in ghost stories, this book is a collection of some of Montague Rhodes James's most famous tales. Well known as a medieval researcher, James's hobby of Christmastide ghost stories overshadows his scholarship and came to reflect a pivotal shift in English ghost telling from Gothic trappings to a more contemporary literary horror. His stories tended to contrast modern or even banal elements with more ancient evil and forgotten lore, often through the perspective of a librarian or antiquarian. This can make for some interesting features as to what passes for modern in ghost stories aged at about 100 years. The obsession with golf, for example, features so prominently that one can't help but wonder if it isn't defined as a good ghost story spoiled. In fairness, this is sometimes played for legitimate laughs, like in The Mezzotint or Oh Whistle and I'll Come For You, My Lad, the latter of which features a professor of reality so solemn that he plans a vacation for 3 weeks just to improve golf, without any indication that he actually likes playing it. There are frequent intersections with university life, with protagonists usually being some sort of professor or fellow or museum director of a fictional college, supposedly of Cambridge or Oxford. Since these stories often draw from the educated and gentlemanly class of characters, they are written with distinct formalism, even a sort of indirectness with which they approach plot and description. A house is never a house. It is always a country house, a manor home in the style of the previous century, with flying arches, gabled roofs, porticos, and some imported Italian marble used to copy some scene from Tivoli or to build an effigy in the Baroque style. Strangely, in many cases, James makes the decision to draw a foil to the scholarly diction with a phonetic rendering of a rustic or lower-class footman's accent. This probably played to great effect in the live reading of these stories, no doubt enhanced by James's skill as an actor. However, I was grateful for the endnotes that indicated the probable meaning of these dialectic pronunciations, especially when it was a butchered French or Latin expression. Oh, and Latin? If you love the classics, there is plenty of Latin for you, along with frequent references to Greco-Roman myth. But while James spends a lot of time focusing on these quotidian details or oblique allusions, he was the son of an Anglican pastor. You might as well dust up on your lesser-known Bible. Ephesians, Isaiah, Daniel, it's all there. He is curiously circumspect about the actual phantoms or demons that bedevil his tales. This is purposeful, as James himself wrote, that he wanted the reader's dread enhanced by imagination, letting what's unsaid balloon until its final horrific reveal. In the case of Mr. Humphreys and his inheritance, for example, the ghost is first introduced as an Irish yew and then a bit of creeping vine before it emerges from the center of a map like a wasp with the shriveled face of an old man clawing its way from rotted fruit. While that scare plays as intended, this style of writing grows tiresome at points, falling into a writerly trap that I find H.P. Lovecraft is also guilty of. There are some indescribable horrors which, nevertheless, are described in minute detail, down to patches of dark fur that are grouped more like quills, or the gnarled ragged claws that resemble chicken feet and whatnot. Upon seeing these otherworldly terrors, inevitably a character is thrown into gibbering madness, doomed to be haunted by nightmares so wretched that only a swift death might bring them any peace. That's not to say that the stories are boring. They are not, and there's some real creep to them, especially in Kenan Albrecht's scrapbook, The Mezzotint, and The Ash Tree. But sometimes James makes you work for your spooks, as in Martin's Close, where you'll have to read through a half-dozen contrived passages of 17th century English court proceedings in order to get the testimony of a murderer who is haunted by the phantom of his victim. And even then, I can't say I was much scared by the twist. You see it coming, you just have to read 20 pages to get to where you were in the beginning. Despite the few stories that fall flat, it's easy to see why James is still held in high esteem. As I read these stories, I was surprised there weren't more modern adaptations outside of the BBC. Counting the Rooms, Number 13, The Rose Garden, among others, would fit in well with the modern conventions of horror, with or without updates to the setting, which makes this collection worth your while. James has some moments where he drags, but when the third lock falls off Count Magnus's sarcophagus, you know all too well that your black pilgrimage has come to an end. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. Let's see what Ruby thinks. 1, 2. Any more? Just a little sniff? Okay, well there you have it. Count Magnus and Other Stories by M.R. James. Rated 3.5 stars, 2 rubs, a sniff, and a whack of the tail. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions on what we should read next, please leave a comment.